When we think back to the nature of life in the Arabian Peninsula before the coming of Islam, it is dominated by tribalism. Tribes and clans will fight one another, will try to steal from one another. They become the principal way in which people identified. You are a member of this clan first and foremost before anything else. So it was a clan-dominated, tribal-dominated society. Now Islam and the Prophet and the Quran come to put a complete stop to that way of thinking. First, there is the family of the individual, and then there is the welfare of the whole community. So, family, community. There are no other boundaries or divisions that are to be there within Islam. Tribalism has no place. Clan politics have no place. Fighting and stealing and doing acts in the name of a clan is no longer acceptable. And we can transfer that into our own time by thinking about racism, by thinking about national identity, by thinking about all the other divisions that divide human beings one from another. They are to play no part in the way of Islam, in the way of the Quran and the Prophet. We can see that writ large when we come to see what happens after the Prophet migrates to Medina with his infant Muslim community. Now, these Muslims were coming from Mecca. All their expertise, all their knowledge was in trading. They were merchants. They knew about business. By contrast, the people of Medina were agriculturalists. They grew food. They were involved in date planting and date farming and so on. So we see two different sorts of expertise. And so what the Prophet does when the people migrate from Mecca to Medina, he pairs off members of the Muslim community. One from Mecca who understands the business of trade, of merchandising, and one from Medina who understands the business of agriculture. It is from agriculture that their income has to be derived in the earliest times. And so we can see a sharing here between the land, the people, the food, and the merchants, the trading expertise of the people of Mecca. Now, the Prophet pairs people off in this way, except what happens when he comes to think about pairing himself. What happens, of course, is that the Prophet pairs himself with Ali, so that like two brothers, they are paired together. Now, on the one hand, this is to say to all the people, there is no favoritism. You can imagine if the Prophet had paired himself either with one from Mecca or one from Medina, this would have caused a challenge of favoritism. But secondly, it's giving a more profound message. It is saying that there is a special relationship, there is a special bond between Muhammad and Ali, which we are going to follow on through the rest of their life together. The Prophet often uses Ali as his agent, as the one that he sends out on tasks. It may be that he sends him out on military tasks to see off raiding parties and things like that, but more importantly, he sends him also on charitable tasks. So we see that Ali is sent off with a sack full of bread during the hours of darkness to leave bread at the threshold of the poor people of Medina, without exception. Human beings who are in need are the concern of the Prophet, and therefore they are the concern of Ali too. So we see him going to the poor and hungry and leaving bread for them. Leaving bread so that they would find it in the morning. He doesn't make a great song and dance about the fact that he is giving this gift, the gift of life, the gift of continued sustenance to this family. Rather, it is a natural sharing from those who have more to those who have less, to those who are in need. And we see the Prophet using Ali again and again as his emissary in acts of goodness, in acts of charity toward those in need in the community. Another way in which Ali fulfills a special function within the community is to be the repository of knowledge, the one who actually is closest to the Prophet and is the treasury of wisdom which is gleaned, which is drunk in from everything that the Prophet does. And we know that throughout the rest of his life, Ali will be characterized as the one who is full of wisdom. And even those who are his enemies, even those who have usurped his position, like Umar when he becomes caliph, nevertheless, Umar relies upon the wisdom of Ali in order to act wisely in accordance with the Quran and with reason in that society. So Ali then, the repository of wisdom derived from the Prophet. But the second way in which Ali drinks in during this time the life and the sunnah of the Prophet is in his eloquence. He is able to put across the message, the teaching of the Prophet, the teaching of the Quran in the most beautiful words, in sermons, in speeches, in teaching, which is passed on into the community throughout the rest of his life after the death of the Prophet. And these are collected together in the Nahjul Balagha, in those most beautiful, the most perfect sayings, which have then been passed on down to us. We see then in this way Ali, the fountain of wisdom, Ali, the eloquent one. From that time onwards, his whole development as an imam takes a whole new dimension. Because he is the agent of the Prophet, he is the constant companion of the Prophet, he is the one who will bear that message on after the Prophet's death. And so we see in Ali an example for all those who trust in God to follow. An example of taking from the sunnah of the Prophet, incorporating it into his own life, and then modeling that in his life, in his words, in his wisdom, so that he can pass it on to subsequent generations. So Ali becomes to all of us a role model of taking in and transmitting the wisdom and the eloquence which are there in Islam, derived from the Quran and from the Prophet himself. Ali, the role model, Ali, the one that others are called to follow, Ali, the one that others should have as their focus, to see him as the pair, the brother of the Prophet, and eventually to be the successor after his death.